Welcome to Creative Spirit Gathering. I am your host, Reverend Jen Hutchins with Unity Arts Ministry. We are here together to explore and express what's on our minds and hearts in an art journal format. And scraps falling out. Today I'm going to be walking through the idea of intimate scale in our lives and in our art, and sharing with you some quick techniques for working with water-soluble colored pencils. It's kind of a fun tool if you've never worked with them. I'll be sharing with you how this page came to be in just a moment. But first, I want to point out the word across the top of my page. It says soar. I'm not even sure if it's backwards for you all or not today. Okay. I have a different camera set up, so you never know, but thank you for the thumbs up on there so that I know you can see it. So, fun story. I was working on this journal page the other day and starting out with my feathers, starting with my colored pencil techniques, and then I started writing underneath it, which maybe you can see some of the writing again. It's not showing up as well, but there's lots of text down there, and I was processing my own little story with this feather and this particular feather's meaning as part of my spiritual journey. And then I wrote this word soar. And after I wrote it once, I realized, oh, it's too thin. And so I started using my colored pencil to just outline it. And as I was outlining the word soar, I realized that the music I had on in the background was singing about flying and opening your wings. And literally the phrase soar came out. For those of you in our Zoom room, we just listened to that song. What a beautiful, beautiful reminder of the connection of everything, right? Everything is connected. And when we stop and we pay attention to those little threads that are running through our everyday lives, we see that everything that we are doing is all a part of our spiritual journey. And we are being invited to soar into that today. So when I say the word intimate, what comes to mind? You might want to just think about this in your own mind, or if you're here in the group, if you want to write in the chat, or if you're watching this somewhere later and you want to make some comments somewhere, feel free. What does the word intimate mean to you? Or what are some other words that you might associate with intimate? Seeing personal come up for somebody. Close, authentic, sensual, touch, connection, closely held. Intimate. Intimate evokes a sense of feeling almost immediately, right? You hear that word and there's a connection to it, to a feeling, to a thought, to an idea. And each of us has our own definition as well of what intimacy might be. But when we're talking about intimacy in terms of art, what we're talking about is that sense of one-on-one with the viewer. So it's not, last week we talked about monumental art, right? You can think it's not just about size, but the scale of it, right? When you're looking at a Georgia O'Keeffe flower, it is in your face. There's no getting away from it. It is up close and personal for everybody to see. It is very public. It almost becomes statuesque. Or if you think about statues, right, they're meant to be viewed by lots of people all at once, versus something that's intimate draws you in. So you feel as though you're having this one-on-one experience with the art itself. And it can become a very personal experience as you're working, kind of mentally working into the image. You might be drawn in by symbols, by details, by all the little things. It could be, the difference between a posed portrait, where you've got the person looking right at you in a photography, or a candid shot. A candid shot gives you this sense of you're getting this intimate glimpse into what's happening in this person's life. They're just ha ha ha, laughing off or something, and you catch that little moment. It becomes more of this intimate feel, that sense of connection with them. In our own lives, right? This sense of intimacy, again, it's the same thing. It's, where are those places of connection? And when I think about our spiritual journey, my journey, your journey, your journey, your journey, your journey, right? Like everybody's journey, it is a very intimate experience. In fact, I can tell you about my journey, and so I'm sharing an intimate experience with you, but nobody else has been like in that experience, right? It's very personal. It's about me and my relationship with my understanding of higher power, of spirit, of source. And each one of us has our own very intimate experience with spirit. And using our art journal can be one way of processing this intimate relationship, processing what comes forward for us. It could be something that's coming forward in meditation, right? We have this powerful meditative experience where we feel peace. We talked about peace and faith last week. That sense where you are immersed in peace. And then how do you capture that? How do you capture that on the page? It's, again, it's this very intimate experience between you and meditation, your idea of spirit, and then reflecting that onto the page in whatever way you feel called to do so. You might have an intimate relationship with an object that is part of your spiritual journey. And this is where my feather comes in. The feather idea came to me as I was thinking on this idea of intimate scale. On my desk right now at home, I have this little tray, and on it are some items that represent parts of my own spiritual journey. There's this feather. There's a stone egg representing actually spring and rebirth and new growth. I also have a little slice of agate on there. So it's like very small little details, but they serve to remind me of my own journey and remind me of this path that I'm on. And the feather actually came from the backyard of a group that I used to meet at weekly. We would do a weekly Friday meditation together. And the woman who hosted the group for us kept guinea fowl in her garden. And so I didn't put the dots on there. So those of you who know guinea fowl would be like, that's not a guinea feather. I just omitted the dots. But this feather has been with me for over 10 years, right? I often keep it in different places in my art studio or in my office as a reminder of that community. So whenever I see this feather, it's not about it's a feather. It's about spiritual community, and it's about reminding me to maintain spiritual community, the importance of that, the importance of the friendships that I made there, and those lasting connections. So as I was thinking of this idea of intimacy, right, here's this feather sitting right on my desk, and it was inviting me to spend some time with it. So I began by drawing the feather itself, by first, right, connecting with something that I saw as an intimate part of my spiritual journey, and then just being present with it. What are the curves of it? Children are always like great, I don't just want to say critics, right? But they can't be. But so honest and truthful. And so my son came in and saw me drawing this feather, and he was standing behind the drawing at the time. And he was like, oh, it's a feather. Like, that's really cool. And then I held it up for him to see it. And he's like, it kind of looks better upside down. So maybe I should be doing this lesson like this. But his point was that the curve of it seemed exaggerated. So when he was looking at it, compared to what was in front of me, he's like, oh, the curve, it's a little too much, Mom. I intentionally exaggerated the curve because that was this part of, right, the flow that I was feeling from the feathers. So it's okay for us to exaggerate things or to recreate them, not realistically, but how do they make us feel, right? Maybe I saw the feather and it made me think of clouds. And so I just draw wisps of, abstract shapes on my page. I was really feeling drawn into like all the little lines, right? And the gaps, like the spaces where there were these gaps between the spaces and the feathers. It just, again, it just felt like that intimate detail that I wanted to capture. And so I was quite literally going in with colored pencil, very fine line, and noticing the direction that they were going in, and just being present to that experience for like an hour. And I totally lost track of time, which is why my son was in the room in the first place. It's like, it's past 8 o'clock. Thanks for the reminders. Sorry. So once I created my feather itself using the colored pencil, I then went in, because these were, again, special watercolor pencils. It says watercolor on there. There are many different brands that make these, but you can then hit the watercolor pencils with water on your brush, and like magic, it will smooth things out and blend them. So you can see near the edges, I did not use the water, and in the center I did. So you can kind of see how you get more of that watered, soft effect that's coming forward in there. And just to show you like how easy these are. I know you can't really see that, so I'll get closer. Sound effects are always required, by the way, when you're making art. So you can see all the lines and everything that are showing up. And then if I just hit that with some water, and you see it starts to blend and smooth. Do you need these? No. But are they cool? Yeah, and they're fun to play with. So if you get the chance, if you're somewhere, you know, somebody has them on hand, or you want to go pick some up, they're fun to play with. You could do the same thing by using watercolor pencil or using regular colored pencils, and then going in with watercolor paint, you know, to create some softer areas. For me, it was important because it was part of the texture that I was trying to capture with that intimate detail of the feather. For you, it might be something very different, right? Think about what materials reflect that experience that you're trying to capture on the page, whatever it is. Today, we're talking about intimate scale, but you know, we're talking monumental, if we're talking about overcoming fears, if we're talking about peace, think about what materials represent for you and connect with that idea. That's the beauty of keeping an art journal as part of your spiritual practice. Now, once I was done leaning into the process, like I said, I went in and I started writing sort of poetically, in a sense, about my experience with this feather, the community, the connections that I had made, and what it represents for me, and leaning into that word soar, and then paying attention to the music that was happening around me. That was my experience. That was my process, leaning into this idea of the intimate scale of the spiritual journey. And today I invite you to choose something that's part of your spiritual practice, your spiritual journey, your memories around these ideas, or even just leaning into the meditation today and trying to recreate that moment on the page, however that's coming forward for you. So we're going to lean into our meditation now. And as we come from the meditation, we'll move right into our time of journaling. Knowing for those of you here in our live community, you will have about 45 minutes for that experience. For those of you watching this later on recording, you have an infinite amount of time. So, and you all here too, you have an infinite amount of time. We will just be checking back in with each other after the 45-minute period. So let it be your practice. Choose what materials work for you. Lean in to what does that intimate relationship with your spiritual journey look like? What is calling forward today to be explored? Remember, there's no right or wrong in our journal. It's about the process. So let's take a moment now, right? First, relax those shoulders, let them drop, wiggle them down away from your ears. Feel your feet on the ground if they're not already there. Take a couple of breaths to center yourself in this moment. If you haven't already done so, you may wish to close your outer eyes or soften your gaze, finding a central point to gently focus. Let the breath relax our body. Let the mind relax. Imagine it like a muscle. Maybe we've been holding tense. Just letting that tension out. You may still notice thoughts, and that's okay. As we are leaning into the idea of intimacy today, think about your senses. Really pay attention to what you hear right now in this moment. Notice the little sounds. Switch our sense awareness to what does your skin feel right now? Is there a breeze, warmth? Your fingertips touching your legs or one another? Lean into the sense of smell. Do you notice any scent in the air? Smell of spring coming through the windows. Scent of breakfast in the kitchen. Scent of your art materials. As you continue breathing into the silence, simply allow yourself to be present, to let your awareness of your senses take you deeper into this present moment, this very intimate moment with yourself, with spirit. We rest now in the silence. Take note of this feeling of peace as we let it come with us. back to our consciousness, our conscious awareness of this moment in time, carrying this intimate sense of the presence of spirit right where we are. And so it is. As we gently flutter our eyes open, we now move into our journal experience, exploring and expressing on the page our intimate relationship with our spiritual journey. Enjoy the process.